Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm talking about Sun inconjunct or quincunx to Pluto in Synastry. So with this aspect we have, all of the energies of Sun Pluto, but manifesting in a much more internal or less overt way. So the inconjunct aspect in synastry shows awkwardness because the inconjunct or the quincunx aspect, it's just even harder to resolve than the square or the opposition, but it's a much less overt manifestation. Like the inconjunct aspect is a more sixth house kind of energy or eighth house energy. So it definitely causes a crisis. So this aspect can be very attractive. There is like a magnetic pull toward each other. The Sun person feels like the Pluto person holds some kind of unspeakable power. And they could even see them as like a powerful person. Maybe they have status, maybe they have some sort of power over the Sun person's ego and identity. And the Pluto person feels like the Sun person actually has a very strong ego or a very strong light. And on the one hand, they like that, they're very attracted to that, but on the other hand, that makes them feel very uncomfortable or inadequate. And what can happen with this inconjunct is that the Pluto person, like the other Sun Pluto aspects, but in kind of a different way, the Pluto person is threatened by the Sun person's light, but they're not as likely to overtly say anything. It'll be in a more quieter way, like they might offer suggestions to the Sun person to try to, get them to tone it down. There might be like subtle hints of shaming them, but they're not going to let it out as fully as with some of the other Sun Pluto aspects, and as in being like downright abusive or verbally like trying to control the Sun person. There's just more like subtle jabs at the Sun person's ego or identity, or if it's not expressed as outward at all, it'll just be a subtle feeling of like inadequacy around the Sun person. So the Pluto person definitely can feel like they are this darkness, they're this even like infected or like what's the right word? Like they're this like they're worn out, or they're like Pluto is like they can feel like this old, like disgusting, like vulnerable kind of energy. And then the Sun person is like this bright light, and they want some of that, but at the same time, they can see that the Sun person's ego expression might be quite the match for them, or might be even more powerful than them. And that's really what they're afraid of, is that this Sun person is too big for them, or too bright for them, or too successful for them. But interestingly enough, the Sun person actually feels kind of like the same, that the Pluto person's powerful. The Pluto person has this status, has this like, this, maybe they have money, maybe they have something that the Sun person feels like kind of an awkward energy around too, that they, can't possibly have that power and magnetism that the Pluto person has. So this aspect can definitely bring up a lot of insecurity in both people, while at the same time they're fascinated, and they can't stop checking each other out and studying each other and obsessing over each other. Like, this is the kind of aspect that'll show up when, they've never told each other that they like each other, but they're both, like, let's say they're both astrologers, they're both studying the synastry like obsessively. That's kind of an energy of an inconjunct too with Pluto, is that like we don't overtly say that we like each other unless we have other things going on, but we just quietly obsess over each other. Now, the other danger with this aspect, though, is that we are in a relationship and we don't ever share these feelings or share these inadequacies or share how this person is making us feel so crazy or so insecure or so vulnerable or so dimmed. Even the sun person can feel a bit dimmed by the Pluto person's subtle energy of power and trying to change them, and the Pluto person can feel just very deeply threatened by how bright the sun person is and how confident they are, at least in an overt way, like outward way. The sun person radiates, and the Pluto person feels, I like that, but I'm also very threatened by them. So it's a very uncomfortable aspect. It's like, it reminds me of like, it's kind of like a nail biting kind of like, you can't look away, but also it is difficult to successfully merge. Now, if you have other compatibilities and other really good things going on, this can be a more minor influence. It can even add a little bit of like a spice or a little bit of like an attraction and sexual energy toward each other, with because it has this kind of like investigative like quality. So then it can be quite minor. But if you throw this in with like a bunch of other Pluto synastry and squares and harsh like Saturn stuff or something, then this can be really difficult, and we can have a difficult time just merging identities, merging life paths, right? The sun person, if they don't have other aspects to their sun that allows them to shine, they can feel really repressed by the Pluto person's energy. So yeah, it can be a more minor thing, but it's definitely an annoying kind of interesting interplay to have. It's like, yeah, it's like the Pluto aspect, Pluto inconjunctions or Pluto quincunxes, they manifest on a more even internal level. So it kind of causes both people to go into a sort of like paranoia even at times, which is yeah, very interesting manifestation. But on the positive, like I said, it is this kind of like investigative, like checking each other out, double take, like, you know, feeling each other's energy in a very strong, even kind of invasive way when we have a Pluto Sun aspect. And when it's the quincunx, there's a very um, like openness to each other, vulnerability towards each other. The Sun person can really be vulnerable to the Pluto person's um, like power grabs. So there's like a subtle power grab from Pluto. And of course, the only reason that they're doing that is because of that threat that they feel the sun person is. So, yeah, it's a really interesting one. You want to look at the signs too that this inconjunction is taking place in to give you more of the story of like what the Pluto person is threatened by and what kind of power the Sun person feels the Pluto person has, that they feel like impossible for them to have. Like they just can't quite grasp the allure of this Pluto person. And yeah, so it's very interesting. I'd love to know your experience of this one. If you've had it in Synastry, let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for your requests, you guys. This video was requested. Keep those requests coming in the comments, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye.